Robert Wallace Malone, born 1959, is an American immunologist and biochemist. His early work focused on mRNA technology, of which he was a pioneer, pharmaceuticals, and drug repurposing research. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Malone has promoted misinformation about the safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines. Early life and education. Robert Malone received his BSc in biochemistry from the University of California, Davis in 1984, his MSc in biology from the University of California, San Diego in 1988, and his MD from Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine in 1991. He attended Harvard Medical School for a year-long postdoctoral studies program. Career. In the late 1980s, while a graduate student researcher at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in San Diego, California, Malone conducted studies on messenger ribonucleic acid (mRNA) technology, discovering in a landmark experiment that it was possible to transfer mRNA protected by a liposome into cultured cells to signal the information needed for the production of proteins. In 1987, Malone performed experiments on the transfection of RNA into human rat, mouse, xenopus, and Drosophila cells, work which was published in 1989. A follow-up study also published in 1989 found that frog embryos absorbed such mRNA. A 1990 paper, in collaboration with John A. Wolfe, Dennis A. Carson, and others, first suggested the possibility of synthesizing mRNA in a laboratory to trigger the production of a desired protein. These studies are recognized as among the earliest steps towards mRNA vaccine development. Malone claims to be the inventor of mRNA vaccines. And while Stan Gromkowski, an early mRNA vaccine researcher and cellular immunologist, views Malone as an underappreciated pioneer, who could be in contention to win a Nobel Prize for his work, credit for the distinction is more often given to later advancements by Catalin Carrico and Drew Weissman or Moderna co-founder Derek Rossi, and was ultimately the result of the contributions of hundreds of researchers, including Malone. Malone has served as Director of Clinical Affairs for Avanza Group, Assistant Professor at the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Medicine, and an Adjunct Associate Professor of Biotechnology at Kennesaw State University. He was CEO and co-founder of Atheric Pharmaceutical, which in 2016 was contracted by the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases to assist in the development of a treatment for the Zika virus by evaluating the efficacy of existing drugs. Until 2020, Malone was Chief Medical Officer at Alchem Laboratories, a Florida pharmaceutical company. COVID-19. In early 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Malone was involved in research into the heartburn medicine famotidine, Pepcid, as a potential COVID-19 treatment following anecdotal evidence suggesting that it may have been associated with higher COVID-19 survival. Malone, then with Alchem Laboratories, suspected famotidine may target an enzyme that the virus SARS-CoV-2 uses to reproduce, and recruited a computational chemist to help design a 3D model of the enzyme based on the viral sequence and comparisons to the 2003 SARS virus. After encouraging preliminary results, Alchem Laboratories, in conjunction with New York's Northwell Health, initiated a clinical trial on famotidine and hydroxychloroquine. Malone resigned from Alcom shortly after the trial began, and Northwell paused the trial due to a shortage of hospitalized patients. With another researcher, Malone successfully proposed to the publishers of Frontiers in Pharmacology a special issue featuring early observational studies on existing medication used in the treatment of COVID-19, for which they recruited other guest editors, contributors, and reviewers. The journal rejected 2 of the papers selected, one on famotidine co-authored by Malone and another submitted by physician Pierre Corey on the use of ivermectin. The publisher rejected the ivermectin paper due to what it stated were a series of strong, unsupported claims, which they determined did not offer an objective nor balanced scientific contribution. Malone and most other guest editors resigned in protest in April 2021. And the special issue has been pulled from the journal's website. Malone received criticism for propagating COVID-19 misinformation, including making claims about the toxicity of spike proteins generated by some COVID-19 vaccines, using interviews on mass media to popularize medication with ivermectin, and tweeting a study by others questioning vaccine safety that was later retracted. He said that LinkedIn temporarily suspended his account over a post stating that the chairman of the Thomson Reuters Foundation was also a board member at Pfizer, and other posts questioning the efficacy of some COVID-19 vaccines. Malone has also falsely claimed that the Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines could worsen COVID-19 infections, and that the Food and Drug Administration (FDA) had not granted full approval to the Pfizer vaccine in August 2021. In November 2021, Malone shared a deceptive video on Twitter that falsely linked athlete deaths to COVID-19 vaccines. In particular, the video suggested that Jake West, a 17-year-old Indiana high school football player who died of sudden cardiac arrest, had died from COVID-19 vaccination. However, West died in 2013 from an undiagnosed heart condition. Malone deleted the video from his Twitter account after receiving a cease and desist letter from West's family. Malone later said on Twitter that he did not know the video was doctored. On December 29, 2021, Twitter permanently suspended Malone from its platform, citing repeated violations of our COVID-19 misinformation policy, after he shared on that platform a video about supposed harmful effects of the Pfizer vaccine. On December 30, 2021, Malone claimed on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast that something called mass formation psychosis was developing in American society in its reaction to COVID-19, just as during the rise of Nazi Germany. Clips of the podcast episode were removed by YouTube from their platform for violating the site's community guidelines. 270 physicians, scientists, academics, nurses and students wrote an open letter to Spotify complaining about the content of the podcast on January 3, 2022. Congressman Troy Nehls entered a full transcript of the Joe Rogan Experience interview with Malone into the congressional record in order to circumvent what he said was censorship by social media. On January 23, 2022, Malone spoke at an anti-vaccine and anti-vaccine mandate rally in front of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. References. External links. Official website. Robert Malone on Substack.